This is a little bit different painting from my regular landscapes that I do, but really enjoyed the light on this one. I shot this reference picture from a hill above a local high school where I live. There's a lot of complexity to the picture, a lot of small details, but I think it'll be a fun challenge. What I did was I brought it into Photoshop just to frame things and to try to simplify it a little bit. There's a lot of complexity here, a lot of details that don't need to be shown on the painting. I usually try to do a charcoal sketch of the scene before I start painting. It really familiarizes me with the scene, with the shapes and also the tonal values. This isn't meant to be a piece of art in itself. It's usually just a pretty rough sketch. I think I did this one in less than an hour. The finished painting doesn't always resemble the drawing either. Again, it's just more of a way of familiarizing myself with the scene. So to begin this painting, I'm going to work on the darks first, which I normally do. These will be areas where there are trees and maybe some shadow sides of some of the buildings. The sky and the distant hills are going to be a little bit lighter, and as we proceed back in the painting, it will get a little lighter as well with the atmosphere. So I'll probably just start over here with this tree and maybe some of the bushes down below here. First, I mix up some ivory black and some yellow, a little bit of white too. This gives me a nice subtle green dark shade. What I attempt to do here is to make interesting shapes. The edges, I want them to be not just a boring blob, but something that's fun to look at. But it says tree at the same time, or bush, or something dark in there. This is a 16 by 20 panel that I pre-toned with a transparent red oxide acrylic. Then I drew the major shapes in with a charcoal pencil and then sprayed a casein fixative over that. And I've got some other dark areas up here, which will probably blend into this plant. And that'll give us this path of dark shade. As I paint these dark areas, I need to remember to leave space for buildings and other things that reflect this night sky. And a lot of this is just setting us up for a nice contrast difference between the field area here. The rooftop will be somewhat bright as well, but this band of lighter light here, and then the field is a lighter green, lighter on this side. and that's more white here. So this is really setting that, going to set that off, especially this performing arts building over here. It's just a cube. It's a fun cube to paint. This is the first sky that I put in. I ultimately will be scraping or wiping this back to the board and adding another sky, a replacement sky. This one was okay, but I thought it was a little bit too dramatic, very attention demanding. And that's not what I need in this painting. I need the sky to work with the rest of the painting. I need the field and ultimately the players and the people in the field and surrounding areas to be the subject and not the sky. I thought I'd leave it in just to show how I put it in, but then keep in mind that I'll be wiping it out and doing another one later. This area here in the middle of the painting is where I'll put the homes and buildings that reflect the skylight. I'll keep it fairly loose and simple since it's really just a backdrop for the rest of the painting. This is the Performing Arts Center for the city. It's also on the campus of the high school. And I decided to put it in because it's an interesting shape. It reflects light and adds some interest. Since I used the transparent red oxide acrylic as the canvas toning, it made it really easy to see where I'm leaving space for buildings. And in fact, I'll leave a little bit of this transparent red showing through the painting since it complements the sky. Let's take a look at the field itself, which is this shape right here, down here. There's a lighter part here, which is the track around the field, and it takes on various tones as you move around. This is more warm here, and then we get more cool here, and then somewhat neutral gray here is what I'm going to try to go for. So I'll mix up some greens with some Ultramarine Blue and the Cad Yellow medium. As I paint across the field, I want to change tone to take advantage of the light stands that we'll be putting in later, adding pools of light and lights and darks here and there. Now I'm working on the building that's actually behind the seating or the grandstands. The shape of the roof was something that intrigued me, as well as the brightness of the rooftop reflecting the skylight. Ultimately, I'm going to change the shape of that roof later. This kind of reminded me of an arrow, even though it's probably pretty close to the way it looked in the reference. The painting called for something else. So I'll be changing that later on in the painting as well. This blacktop area behind the field is a good excuse to add some light reflections a little bit later and some figures in there. Okay, now we're putting the new sky in. I wiped it clean. Didn't get that on video, but it's not too exciting. And now I'm putting in some color that I want to use as the base for the sky. What I'm going to do is put these colors in and then come back with a 3-inch badger brush, softening brush, and soften the sky. So a lot of the same colors, but more of a calm sky. Now I'm putting in the towers for the field lights. These towers add a nice vertical to the painting, tying the middle portion to the bottom portion. Here I'm actually redoing the grandstands and some of the track area around the field, as well as some of the players on the field. I'm treating these players that are on the field, the football players, as really just almost one shape. Looking at a reference of a photo that I took off the internet of football players gave me the idea of kind of the shape and overall stance. One of the key things that really makes these players look like they're on the field are their shadows. Since there are light towers, the shadows tend to be a little bit more rounded and even on all sides. But as soon as I add these shadows in, it really anchors them to the field there. Now I'm adding some light scatter to add atmosphere to the painting. And I will blur this out with a small badger brush. Now I decided to tone down that upper left side with more of a blue-gray to set it back a little bit. It's in an area of the painting that's not supposed to be too noticeable anyway. Now I'm adding in additional darks to areas I want to tone down a little bit. All right, finished this one. Well, thanks for joining me. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the sky and the lights, the combination of the setting sun and then the lights being on for the field, for the players. This is representation of the reference that I took. You can see here, got a little bit more of the color up in the sky here. And then on the field itself, the players and whatnot, I accentuated them, moved them towards the center, brightened them up a bit, and then changed a lot of what was going on back here. Simplifying is the key. You know what? I don't like this. Here I go. This needs to be toned down. Just noticed that. It's never done, right? So I did make a slight adjustment to this building back here. I just noticed it was right on top of the Performing Arts Center building here and didn't look right. So just a few brush strokes and we toned that down. All right, so now I'm really done. So if this is something you like, please consider subscribing and giving me a thumbs up. Thanks, we'll see you next time. Just one more little tweak right there. Okay.